been back really since the pandemic, and we're finally reaching full swing again with events to engage the community at this great university. At the risk of missing anyone, and I'm looking around now, let me welcome former First Ladies, Mrs. Jean Ariyoshi, Mrs. Lin Waihee. Consul General Aoki is expected to join us later, but Mrs. Yutaka Aoki is here with us today also. Chancellor Emerita Virginia Hinshaw, thank you, good to see you, Virginia. And Ms. Jeannie Rolls, also of the Yushinkai. Welcome to all, and of course Art Taniguchi, who is the Honorary Consul of Japan in Hilo as well. Dr. Sen first came to UH in the early 1950s to study philosophy and art. He made so many friends in this community, and if you haven't met him yet, you will soon see why that happened. And he was so popular that he came back to Hawaii again and again, nurturing students and teachers of the tea ceremony. Never forgetting his ties with our university, he started the Urasenke Hawaii Seminar at UH in 1971. This continued annually, except for the pandemic, so I'm very happy to report that we just restarted last July. And through his generosity, UH now has a beautiful Japanese tea ceremony house called Jakuan. We have an endowed chair in history, the Soshitsu Sen Distinguished Professor of Traditional Japanese Culture and History, the Dr. Soshitsu Sen International Way of Tea Center, and dozens of our students have studied on scholarships in his Midorikai program at Urasenke in Kyoto. Dr. Sen's dedication to education, his tireless efforts for world peace really inspire all of us. So mahalo, Dr. Sen, for your generous support of Chado at UH and for your leadership in promoting world peace. Finally, for those of you who don't know, let me wish an early happy birthday to Dr. Sen on his upcoming 100th birthday. On April 19th. I can only wish that all of us look so good. So now if I can, Mark Levin, the director of our Centers for Japanese Studies, will offer a more formal introduction. Mark?
Thank you, President Lassner. Aloha again. It is my great honor to be here today to introduce Dr. Genshitsu Sen, who served as the 15th generation Grand Master of Urasenke, a leading path of Japanese tea, represented here in Hawaii by the Chado Urasenke Hankokai Hawaii Association. Perhaps most everyone in the audience today already understands that speaking of Japanese tea, or as Dr. Sen has expressed it, the way of tea, encompasses a tremendous amount more than the presentation and consumption of a wonderful and delicious hot beverage. The way of tea represents a fundamental archetype built into deep layers of Japanese culture over the course of centuries. Its influence on aesthetics, cuisine, architecture, and norms of social relations is sometimes subtle, but always vibrant and significant. And the bowl of tea, where Dr. Sen has encouraged us to find peacefulness, serves as the nucleus of this vital system upon which so much more has been positively built. We've already taken note that Dr. Sen is approaching his 100th birthday. He was born into the family lineage of the Urasenke tradition and took over the leadership role where he served from 1964 to 2002. Following his retirement from that formal role, he has continued in many engagements towards international understanding, earning honorary recognition as a UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador by the Director General of UNESCO, an advisor to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, honorary academic degrees including from the University of Hawaii in 1983 and elsewhere, and national honors, including the Order of Culture by His Majesty the Emperor of Japan, and the Legion of Honor with the degree of Commander from the government of France. Dr. Sen's generous donations have already been noted by President Lassner for the University of Hawaii, but I want to reiterate how fortunate our UH Manoa Center for Japanese Studies is, not only from the financial support, but from the warm and ongoing personal support that Dr. Sen has shown to students and faculty for decades. In fact, perhaps many of you have been able to participate in the Way of Tea practicum. Can I have a show of hands? Look at that. That was formed here and has taken place annually since 1978. And I expect that that has significantly shaped your future engagement with Japan and Japanese studies. I believe that allows our university's Center for Japanese Studies, one of the oldest and largest centers for Japanese studies in North America, to stand out uniquely in this regard. Dr. Sen's lecture today is co-sponsored by the University of Hawaii's Department of History, represented by Dr. Kieko Matson, the Associate Department Chair. And on behalf of that department and our center, I would also like to say an early wish for Dr. Sen's happy 100th birthday. And now allow you all and us all to hear his insights today with his chosen topic, the spirit of tea and peacefulness. Please welcome Dr. Genshitsu Sen. Is it plugged in? It's wireless. Okay. Check the switch. Wait.
あちらのチェックしないと係の人がさっさとやらないち動いてんだけどマイクオン
マイクはちょっと故障してますんで。
So we apologize for having some difficulties with the mic.
皆さんどうもこんにちは。
Hello, everybody.
本当に今日はお忙しい中をこうして皆さんがお集まりいただいて大変ありがたく存じております。どうもありがとうございます。
I realize how busy all of you are, and the fact that you've taken time out of your hectic schedules to be with me here today means a lot to me.
この度はハワイ大学の歴史学部また日本文化研究センターダクター薩摩のお世話でこのような催しが 光栄でございます。
For me, this is an honor to be here, but it does take a lot of work to make an event like this come to fruition, and I want to in particular thank the Center for Japanese Studies as well as the relevant departments who have made a tremendous effort, and particularly Dr. Geisatsu.
この度は本当にお忙しい中にもかかわります学長のデビッド・レッツナーです。Thank you very much for being David.
Thank you, President David Glassner. You must be at least as busy as anybody else here.
And Japan研究センターの一部でありますマーク・レビン先生。
And a special call out to Mark Levin, who is the director for the Center for Japanese Studies here.
そしてまたラバナ国の原因の皆さん、本当に内勤の皆さんはたくさんおいでいただいて。
I'd also like to recognize the presence of Jean Ariyoshi, our former First Lady, and so many others here who are very dear to me.
また私の方のハワイ浦山協会の会長野口、またヒロビッグアイランドからまたマウイからもおいでいただいて、大変各地からおいでいただいて大変嬉しく思います。
It also means quite a lot to me that we have Mr. Noguchi here with us today from Oahu. We have our Urasenke family from Maui and even from the Big Island with us here today.
皆さん、昨日は本当にこのバレンタインね、
Yesterday was Valentine's Day, yes?
皆さん方バレンタインに対して大きな心を寄せられたと思います。
And I'm sure that you were aware, perhaps very much aware, that it was Valentine's Day yesterday.
バイブルのコリントの教えの中で愛は忍耐強い、愛は情け深い、妬まない。
In the book of Corinthians in the Bible, there is a description of love as patient and abiding.
愛は自慢せず高ぶらない。
Love is neither arrogant nor proud,
また霊を失うことなく自分の利益を求めない。
nor does love seek personal gain or reward.
イライラしない。
Love doesn't get irritated.
恨みを持たない。
It doesn't hold grudges.
私はコリントのイエス様の教えが仏教徒でありますけれども大変好きなんです。
I am a big fan of those words in the Bible, despite the fact that I'm a Buddhist.
人間が生きてる限りね、本当に皆さんね、命っていうものを皆さん自体どのように感じてられます？
I wonder if you reflect occasionally on the preciousness and sacredness of life, the fact that each of us is alive at this moment.
自分一人が生きてるんじゃない。
Nobody exists alone.
夫婦なら夫婦、そして家族、そしてお父さんお母さん、おじいさんおばあさん、みんな一緒に暮らしてる。
If you happen to have a partner, you live with that partner. Even if you don't, you have a family, and everyone in that family has a mother and a father who had a mother and a father. There's a whole lineage here. We are humanity.
I love you, I love you って言うけれども、みんなお父さんお母さんに対するラブ、夫に対するラブ、妻に対するラブ、兄弟に対するラブ、みんな違うんです、愛は。
Love comes in many forms. The way we love our parents is different from the way we love our husband or our wife, and is different from the way we love our siblings.
私たち日本人はあまりラブっていう言葉は使わない。
In Japan, we tend to avoid using the word love.
非常になんかアメリカの方、ヨーロッパの方は何か言うとテレビでも言ってますすぐに I love you, love you, love you もうラブばっかりですね。
I think it might be easier for you to hear me now. Dr. Sen just went on to say that here in the States, and certainly if you go to Europe, people seem to think nothing of telling each other, I love you, I love you.
そうです。日本人はね、ラブラブ言わなくても好きだ。本当に好きです。好きっていうことは尊敬するっていう意味がかなる。
In Japan, we tend to use the verb suki, S-U-K-I, will tell someone that we suki them. If you translate it, I suppose it would mean I like you, but it also conveys a degree of respect for the person.
この尊敬する本当に大事なことだと思うんですね。
And I believe that that element of respect is an extremely important one.
皆さん、それを思う心っていうものはどこにありますか？
So pop quiz, everyone, where is your heart located?
ここ？
Is it here?
ここ？
Up here?
どうでしょう？
What do you think? どこにもあるという。
はい。本当に
Everywhere.
今の考えは大変進行的で結構ですね。
You have a very progressive way of looking at things. I like that.
結局心っていうものはね、心臓、心は心臓ですよ。これがあるから生きてるんです。これがあるからこの頭の中の脳と一緒になってるわけです。
Everyone certainly has the organ, which is a heart, which starts in Japanese with the same character as kokoro, which is the more metaphorical heart. Without the heart, trust me, nobody will have a functioning brain or mind. So life is certainly emanating from here.
私は頭とそれからこの胸、これとの一体感、これが心を作っていくんです。
For me, the heart, the way that I use it, is the fusion of our thoughts and our ability to emote, to feel.
日本語ではですね、いろんな日本語があるんですよね。心というものを使った日本語のいろんな意味合いっていうものは少ないんですよ。
There are any number of phrases in the Japanese language that make reference to this complexity of this concept of the heart.
まあいつでもね、人間の体っていうものは真ん中がお腹なんです。
Let's take a look at the human body. Right in the middle, you have the naka, naka also meaning middle, but in Japanese refers to the stomach.
そして体の一番終末は足やないです。お尻ですね。
And the very end of your body, don't get it wrong, it's not your feet, it's the rear end.
ですからね、真ん中にお腹なんです。
So you've got your stomach, your onaka, right here in the middle.
だからその印にへそがある。
And as proof, you've got the belly button.
そのつながりが親とつながっていた。
And remember, that's where you have connected to your
へ
mother.
その方、
The umbilical cord.
大事ですよ。
It's an
それを
important
生
cord.
まれた時に切られる。
The moment you're born, they cut it.
でも人間は生まれるまでお母さんのお腹の中でいろいろ栄養をいただいて、そして生まれてくる。
But before you emerge as a separate human being, you are connected, not only connected, you are inside of another human being, drawing all of your nutrients from that person.
そのつながりがへその緒なんですよ。
It's that connection that the umbilical cord represents.
今ね、人間はね、わがままになってきた。
People have become nowadays quite self-centered.
そしていつもみんな自分だけだ。自分だ自我。
People tend more and more to be looking out for number one.
他のことはなかなかどうでもいいっていうような気持ちになってきてですね。
And more, they don't seem inclined to think about others.
ですから今私もさ、へその緒と同じように、他の人もみんな同じように生まれてきてるわけです。
It might benefit us all to just remember that the way that I just described, we're all born connected to another person. This applies to everybody.
世界中の人々が皆それなんだ。
This doesn't apply to any specific group in any specific country. It applies to humanity.
顔は違っても、皮膚の色が違っても、言葉が違っても、習慣が違っても、皆人間は一緒なんです。
Above and beyond the languages that we speak, how we look, we are all part of humanity.
その人間が生きてるっていうのは命なんです。
And therefore, each human being is endowed with something very sacred called life.
英語でライフ。
Life.
命の意義は、私はいろいろ修行中に考えました。
I've given quite a bit of thought as to what life actually means.
まあね、100年も生かしていただいてるとね、いろんなことが頭の先からつま先まで詰まってくるんですよ。
If you live to be 100 years old, you just become full of ideas and experiences from your head all the way down to your tippy toes.
それで命っていうものは何やろうと考えてみたら、日本語っていうのは実は面白いですね。命の意義っていうのは生きるっていう。
Well, I've given this, and I've had a lot of time to think about this. I've given this a lot of thought. You have in Japanese, the word for life is inochi. So the first syllable is I, which you could think of as ikiru, which means to live.
脳は生きるためには人間は食べて、そして働いて、自分というもの、家族というものを養っていかなきゃいけない。
The next syllable in inochi, the word for life in Japanese, is no. And to my thinking, this means going out and growing, working, so that you can get food, put it on the table, and make sure that you and your family are physically, materially taken care of.
ですからみんな望みを持たなきゃいけない。望みを持つ。いいの、望みを持つ。
No is also the first syllable in the Japanese word nozomi, which you may know means hope. And I think that all of us need to embrace hope.
そして地はみんな地持ってる。地ですよ。親からもらった地。さっきのへその緒でみんな親から地持ってる。その親はまた親。そのまた親。みんなそれぞれの人が源さん、野口さんのみんなそれぞれ親の血をもらってるでしょ。違いますか？
The third syllable in inochi is chi. So those of you who speak some Japanese know that chi also refers to blood, the blood that flows in your veins, the blood you receive, that lifeblood from your mother, from the womb. She also received it from hers, and this applies to every person in this room and beyond,
私ちょっと違う。
except for me.
私は親のへその緒の中からお茶飲んできた。
Because through the umbilical cord, my mother simply gave me green tea.
だから無理ですよ。
Yeah. If you were to cut me, I would bleed green, I promise you.
だからこんな元気なんですよ。
And that's why I'm as healthy as I am today. I was building up to get to that.
英語で言うのはライフでしょ。
So in English, you refer to this as life.
考えてみた。LIFE。
I've even given some thought to the spelling of what those letters, L-I-F-E, might represent.
最初の L。
Let's take the L first.
これも同じですよ。ライフです。リーブ。住むためには毎日の生活ですよ。
First L, let's say it stands for live. You have to go about living your life. There are things that just have to be done day after day.
ライフの英語でもちゃんとそういうようにつながってるんですよね。
And that connects, right? The word live and the word life.
RIFU っていうものを考えてみるとみんなすごい地なんですよ。地があるから生きてる人間が。
So it all starts, the life process involves living.
これ面白いですよ。研究してください。言語学者ではないけど先生方どうですか？
I wonder how many of you in your research endeavors explore what being alive and life truly means.
そういう意味においてね、命っていうのは大事なんですね。
In short, the most important thing we all have and we all share is this gift of
私
life.
たちはね、それと同時に生きているためには自分のいる場所、居場所っていうものが必要なんです。
We all agree that we're all alive. We have to take the discussion a little bit deeper. I believe that everybody needs a place that they really feel they belong and make a difference.
学長なら学長の居場所ですよ。
From the president of the university,
そしてまたいろいろな仕事を持ってらっしゃる社長なら社長の居場所。いろいろとそういう自分の居場所っていうものは人間は非常に大事なんです。
to the business world, you may be the president of a company. I believe it's very important that we have a sense of who we are and where we make a difference.
まあ私もですね、若い頃このハワイ大学で、2年間学びました。
I studied on this campus for about 2 years. That was quite a long time ago.
その時の学長がシンクレア先生。
The president of the university at the time was a Mr. Sinclair.
そして私をいろいろ教えてくれたダクター・モアっていう哲学の先生でした。
There was also a philosophy teacher by the name of Dr. Moore who left a deep impression on me.
英語が半分ぐらいしかわからなかった。
I only understood about half of what the people were saying to me in English at the time.
それで一生懸命考えたりこうやってたら私の隣に座ってる中国系のチャンさんっていう女性がですね、私にミスター・センはどうして一生懸命繰り返し言えてるのって言われた。
I was fortunate though, I did have a fellow student next to me, Miss Chan. She was of Chinese descent.
で私は英語が半分しかわからない。先生に言うてるわからない。
I confided in her that I only understood about 50% of what the professors were saying.
それでそのチャンさんがそれでちょっと一緒にいらっしゃいってバッグの手引っ張ってダクター・モアそのフィロソフィーの先生でした。ダクター・モアの前にミスター・センは日本から来て英語があんまりわからない。だからそのつもりで教えてやってください。
This fellow classmate of mine, Chan, actually took me by the hand up to Dr. Moore, the philosophy teacher, and said, Mr. Sen doesn't have a good command of English. Keep that in mind when you're teaching.
まあそれでですね、私は落第点スレスレでハワイ大学の卒業ができなかったんです。
It's not too surprising that I didn't end up graduating.
でも私にとってはハワイ大学は大事な場所なんです。
Nevertheless, the University of Hawaii continues to be, for me, a
私は
special
この大
place.
学の居場所、それが若い時にいろいろな私は経験をさせてもらう。
And I really experienced a lot of things that were formative for me here.
ここにいるミスター野口がよく知ってます。
Mr. Noguchi knows a lot of what I'm talking about.
でも私はある意味においては日本で学んで、そしてこうしてアメリカでハワイ大学で学んだということ自体は私自体はですね、世界を見るっていうことを教えてくれたんですね。
I believe that the fact that I not only had the opportunity to study in Japan, but also had the opportunity to study here in the United States served to expand my horizons tremendously.
ですからね、私一番ね、ここで教えてもらったのは自然、ネイチャーですよ。この素晴らしい、そう当時は今あんなビルディングがたくさんあったんじゃないんです。ハレクナニホテルが、ハレクナニホテルがもう本当に テルでした。その浜辺にとったらずーんと大門のヘッドが何にもなかった。
One of
やっ
the
たな。
One of the teachers that I learned the most from during my stay in Hawaii was Mother Nature. What a special place Hawaii is in that regard. And back in those days, you think of Waikiki, maybe some of you think of the Hale Kulani. I think of huts and a clear view to the mountain.
太陽が輝く、そしてヤシの葉、そして砂浜、もう緑の海のきれいなことをもう私はこの自然の中に抱かれたみたいでした。
When I was here, I would look at the rich blueness of the sky and the coconut palm trees. The air was so fresh and clean, and I felt like I was truly in the embrace of Mother Nature.
ある日ね、ワイキキの浜辺にサンセットですよ。もうサンセットできれいなサンセットだなと思ったらね、グリーン、緑のね、サンセットがいたんです。
Go
見
down
ました
to
か、あなた。緑のサンセット。
グリーン
go down to the beach because I wanted to experience the sunset over the open water. And something unexpected happened. There was this explosion of green.
おそらくこんなことはあんまり見たことないと思うな。
Maybe you've never had this experience. If you've had this experience that I'm talking about, this explosion of green light.
私ね、あの時ね、ヨーロッパの橋のとこ行った時にオーロラを見たの。それは後ですよ。その前にそのグリーンサンセットを見た時、すごいな、ネイチャーが。
I found out later that there's actually a word for the phenomenon, but that was later. And while I experienced it directly, to me, this was a fascinating first-time experience.
そして私はそれを自分の心に抱いて、自分のこれからのお茶の中にはこの自然と一緒にいる、自然と一緒にいるお茶でなかったらダメだ。
And that experience impressed on me the fact that when I consume a cup of tea, I should consider that embrace, that green embrace of Mother Nature that I experienced here.
ところがだんだんお茶の勉強している間に、千の利休、私の祖先の500年前に茶の道を作ったウェイ・オブ・ティー、そのウェイ・オブ・ティーの創設者の千の利休が作ったお茶っていうのは自然体なんですね。
This path that I refer to as the way of tea, it was created, formed by my ancestor, Sen no Rikyu, some 5 centuries ago. The underlying basis there is to be natural, as you are, unadorned.
中国から入ってきたお茶を足利時代を経て、そして千の利休が登場して、いわゆるたった一番のお茶をあの緑の色のパウダーをお茶碗に入れて、そしてお湯を適当に入れて茶筅で立てて、それを進め合う。隣の人に「いかがですか？いかがですか？」進め合う心、人間同士を大切にする心、そういうものをたった一碗のお茶で進め合って教えたわけですね。
My ancestor Sen no Rikyu was alive at a time when tea had already been introduced in Japan. There were already tea ceremonies in Japan, but he started and never left his commitment to the basics. I have in front of me a bowl. I put in powdered green tea. I add hot water for the purpose of serving that to this person. And if there's another person, to serve it to that person. That is the essence of what he was doing.
中国では本当に古くですね、三国志で有名な戦国時代ですよ。だからちょうど2000年ぐらい前ですね。その2000年以上前に中国人っていうのはお茶を 飲んだんです。飲んだっていうことは、まあいろいろ文献で私は調べました。中国はあれだけの広い大きな国でありますけど、水が悪いね。水が。
The history of drinking tea, however, does not begin in Japan, as many of you know. It begins in China, and there are documents that speak to the consumption of tea as a beverage that date back 2,000 years.
そして初めてお茶っていうものを見つけたのが猿なんですね。
Do you know who first discovered the tea tree? It was the monkeys.
これは記録に出てます。もう昔の人がなんかその草をそこもこうあるいはなんか中国というところは非常に薬草っていうものを大事にしたんですね。その薬草を探しに山の奥へ入っていった。
So people back in those days, we're going back to millennia, would forage looking for things to eat. In China, they also attached a great deal of importance on medicinal herbs, and so they would be looking around. They go into the forest looking for these things.
そして猿がそこに人間みたいなのが来たんで、その辺にあるその実のなってるその葉っぱをですね、投げつけたんです。
The monkeys who lived in the woods were a bit territorial, and they would see these human beings coming and foraging, and they did what they could, and they grabbed some leaves and chewed them and spit them or threw them down at the people.
これは古い本に出てますよ。騎馬戦のね、歴史の中に出てます。それでそれを拾ってみた。そして持って帰って長老に見せたら、長老はちょっとこれ吸ってみ。そして吸ってみたら、もうグリーンのままそのままとってもこれ匂いがいい。
The people who the monkeys had aimed at would gather up some of these leaves that were thrown down to them. They bring them back to the village. And by the way, I'm not making this up. This is documented in certain historical literature. They bring them back to the village, and they would show the elders, hey, look what we found. And the elders in the village said, let's grind them. Let's grind and see what happens. They grind, and they see this beautiful green powder emerging.
そしてそれをお湯を沸かして入れて飲んでみたら非常に体の状態が良かったんですね。
Boil some water. The command comes from one of the elders. They pour the water in, they try it, and then they gauge how they feel, and they feel good.
これは紀元前600年代に茶経という本が書かれた陸羽っていう人がね、陸の羽で。
Some 600 years BCE, there's a book which in Japan is called Cha-kyo, which I guess could be translated as the Chronicles of Tea.
その茶経に茶は千薬であると書いてある。千薬というのは非常に体のためにいい。
And they characterize tea in this book Cha-kyo as having 1,000 medicinal purposes, senyaku.
最近ね、医学会やそういう薬学会の方でお茶、抹茶、グリーンティーを飲んでたらコロナの予防になるというそれ発表できた。スイスで発表した。
In Switzerland, now I'm going to pull you back into the 21st century. This has been confirmed by the medical community and the pharmacological community. You have a Swiss researcher who went as far as saying he did the research, and if you regularly consume green tea, you will boost your immunity against COVID, among other things.
で、それは私どものスイスの教会のやはりお茶の好きなスイス人のダクターから送ってきた。そのいろんな研究して出してきた。それにはですね、やっぱりカテキンっていうのがお茶の中にある一番いい体のためにやっていた。
I guess I'm fairly known. The doctor in Switzerland actually sent his research results to me. And when you look through this, you see that the doctor is particularly making note of the presence of catechin in tea for its health
で
benefits.
そのカテキンは人間の中にある毒素をですね流すんですね。
Catechin serves to remove toxins from the human body.
ですからね、できたら毎日本当毎日グリーンティーを飲んでいただいたら毒素が流れていくわけ、人間の。
If you were to develop the practice of drinking even 1 cup of green tea, it will help to remove the toxins from your body on a regular basis.
江戸の初期に酒と茶の論、ヒチャ論っていうのが出たんです、本。
In the early Edo period, there was a book that was published, and it had to do with both sake, right, alcohol, and cha.
それは酒飲みとお茶飲みとが論争するんです。酒は百薬の長やと。の茶飲むのは百薬の長だ。そんな酒はあかん。そういう論争が出て結局はまあ酒をほどほどにほどほどに書かれてますよ。
If you read this book, the author seems to believe that there is a conflict between drinking either sake, you're either a sake drinker or you're a tea drinker, and he makes all these arguments for drinking sake, and then he goes on to make all the arguments for drinking tea, but he finally reaches the conclusion that we all would benefit from drinking a little bit of sake and a little bit of tea.
お酒が好きな人は本当にお茶を抹茶を飲まれたらもういっぺんに2日やったらそうなんです。食べてしまうんですよ。
So for those of you who like tea, particularly if you reach for matcha, so the powdered green tea, it even cures hangovers.
ですからね、お茶をやってらっしゃる方はこの度のコロナでもね、あんまりみんな感染しない。
And I can actually tell you that those who regularly drink matcha did much better throughout the pandemic.
あんまり茶飲んでない方が感染する。
I can't say the same for those that didn't.
そういう意味が本当に面白く出てましてね、いわゆるそのお茶っていうものは最初はメディカルバリューだった。
It's very interesting when you look at the history of drinking tea. Initially, tea was prized for its medicinal value.
それを千の利休は非常に総合的な文化というものに作り上げた。
And then here comes Sen no Rikyu, and he takes this beverage and he develops it into what I can only call a multidisciplinary aesthetic journey.
どこの国でも生活文化っていうものは非常に大事なんです。
This type of aesthetics, bringing that into daily life, it doesn't matter what country you're talking about, there is a real role for that in our culture.
日本ではね、日常と日でしょ。日レバーで日常茶飯事っていう言葉がある。茶と飯。
There's a Japanese expression, nichijo sahanji. You hear the sa in there, nichijo sahanji. That's the sa, that's the alternative reading for cha. That expression, which says it includes tea and it also includes food, and this was used to mean something that just has to be a part of your life.
家の中で住むとこも玄関があってすぐに来た茶の間っていう。
You go into a traditional Japanese house, once you go through the so-called vestibule or genkan, you're going to come to the cha no ma, right? The tea room.
今はね、民主主義やって言ってみんな各分裂してしまった。でも昔はどんなうちでも茶の間で茶ぶ台、お茶のテーブル、茶ぶ台、茶卓とも言います。
Life has certainly changed. Now we have nuclear families. Once upon a time, the whole extended family lived under one roof. And in Japan, in that cha no ma room, you would have what we call a cha budai, which is a dedicated low table for drinking tea.
そして茶の間の一番昼の座るところが主人の居場所なんです。
And it was the head of the household, typically the man in those days, would sit at the head of the cha budai table.
その横に主人をサポートしていろいろお茶を入れてくれたりご飯をよそってくれたりする妻の座が。
And right next to the husband, you would have the person who actually did all the cooking.
決まってるんですよ。
to feed everybody. That was the wife's seat. These seats were set.
このテーブルを囲んで家族がみんなお茶を飲んだりご飯をいただいたりするんです。そしてその時に子供たちは父親や母親にいろんなことを話をする。
The whole family would sit around the table. They would eat together. They would drink tea together. And the children, during these times, would sit and learn. They would listen to their parents and learn.
そして父親から母親から礼を教えてもらったり、そしてみんなと仲良くしなきゃいけないよとかいろんな注意を父母からまた祖父がいる場合は祖父からもいろいろ注意を受けたり、そういうしつけっていうもの。
And it was around this table that the children would learn proper etiquette, proper behavior. Their parents would tell them, no, you don't do this, and yes, you do that. Some families were fortunate to have the grandparents still alive, or perhaps even elders beyond that, and they too would join in shaping the children around the chapter.
みんないただく前はいただきます。まあアメリカでもヨーロッパでも祈りの捧げて、それから食事をいただきますわね。Pray for God to given to the
In Japan, before we ingest food or beverage, we tend to say itadakimasu. I'm sure you're familiar with that. And in the West, you also have this tradition of holding hands in some cases, saying grace. It's all the same. It's taking a moment to recognize and be grateful for what you're about to consume.
私の大王表そう言いらっしゃるけど、そしてまた高野山の大王表ですので、仏様に対してありがとう。いただきます。
It's a moment that we have to reflect and to thank the divine for what we're about to receive.
ごちそうさま。
And we finish the meal in Japan, we say gochiso-sama.
お箸なんかね、割り箸なんかね、こう口でピーってやる人は絶対やる。
The disposable chopsticks tend to come initially all connected. You see people grab one side, break the chopsticks. That is, trust me, not good
お箸っ
etiquette.
ていうのはものすごい新鮮なんですよ。仏に備える、神に備える、その御前にちゃんとお箸を2本乗せて、捧げる不前ってお供えの前。
There are times in Japan where we give symbolic offerings to the gods. We'll also place chopsticks on there as the medium for using, the tool by which we will ingest.
それは申し訳ございませんけれども、アメリカに占領されて、日本が民主主義になって、もうみんな勝手になってきた。だから本当にいただきます。ごちそうさまというような人間がこの頃少なくなってきて、残念ですよ。
And I mean no offense, but Japan was occupied by the United States, and then it became a democracy. And little by little, we see etiquette being tossed out the window. Very few people, compared to just a couple of generations ago in Japan, truly say and truly mean itadakimasu and gochiso-sama.
そういうことを教える一つの道として、茶道というものがあるんです。
Fortunately, the way of tea, chado, is here. It's still here with us as a method, a means of teaching these fundamentals.
お茶をあんまり知らない方から見たら、なんであんな茶室でしかとめらが一回って正座して足痛いの我慢して難しいこともやってなんでせんななんていうこと言うからね。
And I'm sure some of you have wondered, what are they doing just to serve a cup of tea? It looks so painful, sitting like this for hours at a time. What is the point of all that?
でも昔は日本は畳っていうのを使ってる。畳。
In Japan, as you know, rooms used to be floored using tatami mats.
この畳っていうほど便利なものないんですよ。
There is nothing more convenient as a flooring material than tatami.
畳の上で着物でも洋服でもきちっと畳むんです。畳の上で畳む。
Tatami is actually, there's a verb tatamu, which means to fold. And you can very conveniently, by the way, fold your kimonos as well as your Western style clothes.
バーッとね、カバーに添えるの 違うんだよ。
Unlike what we're used to now, just kind of take it off, hang it up.
あるいはベッドの上にバーン。
Some people just take off their clothes, throw them right on the bed.
日本には脱いだものをピチッと畳むんです。
But once upon a time, people would undress and then they would carefully fold their garments.
特に畳んだものを部屋の中のタンスの中にピチッと入れる。
After folding or tatamuing their garments on the tatami, they would then carefully put them in the right drawer, in their chest of drawers.
本当にそういう意味から言うとね、日本の畳っていうものは実に大切なんです。
The tatami mat, beyond that, has played a very important role, though, in
そ
Japanese
し
life.
て日本の科学は畳っていう一行の一つ畳を中心にして何畳の部屋っていうことは皆そこで決められていくわけです。
In fact, if some of you are familiar with Japanese residential architecture, the size of a room is often counted in the number of tatami mats that would fit in the room, and the entire layout is based on the ratios of these number of mats.
陸が特別の建築でお茶室を今から500年前に建てた時の最初のお茶室は4畳と半。
The first tea room that Senno DQ created consisted of 4.5 tatami, with the space of 4.5 tatami mats. So yojo han is the Japanese expression.
で日本では4畳半を中心にした家の構えってものはできる、どこでも。
And that actually established a precedent for the size, a standardized size of rooms in a Japanese home.
そして4畳半を中心にしてそれ以外に6畳の間、8畳の間とかいろいろそういう要するに奇数っていうのはありません。偶数なんです。
Other rooms in a Japanese house might consist of 6 tatami mats, 8 tatami mats. Maybe some of you have noticed 4, jump to 6, jump to 8. The tendency is to avoid odd numbers and to use even numbers.
これはですね、中国から入ってきた思想なんです。
This actually is a thinking that was imported to Japan from China.
中国では陰陽、陰陽。
In China, they have the yin-yang counterbalancing philosophy.
陰は太陽月です。月です。
Suki desu.
うん。
I think.
陽は三、太陽です。
So yin being often associated with the moon, yang being associated with the sun.
人間では男と女。
In our case, as human beings, we have the male-female polarity.
申し訳ないけど、中国の思想では男が陽で女が陰だった。
And I'm not going to apologize for the Chinese thinkers at the time, but Yo was associated with the male in traditional Chinese thinking, and Yin with the Yang with the male and Yin with the female.
これよく調べてみたら、決して女をこうしてるんじゃないですね。女性は陰から男をサポートする。
But I don't want you to come away with the wrong idea. I've looked into this. This is not a misogynistic philosophy. Rather, it was the idea that the female's role in those days was to support and therefore ensure the collective success.
女性がここまで出てサポートするんじゃなくて、隠れて
The woman wasn't expected to stand in front and support by being the guard, the protector, but from behind the scenes.
時の男性さんが後ろから。 それだけ女性っていうものは本当に力強いんですよ。
So then and now, the role of the person who is willing to play that supportive role, it cannot be underestimated.
五行、木、火、土、金、水。木曜日の木、木ですよ。火、土、金、水、木、火、土、金、水、五行。5つの行。
And then many of you are familiar with the 5 elements. So we have wood, fire, water, etc.
木、これは春ですよ。木が いろいろ茂ってくる今、日本ではものすごい寒いですけど、ぼちぼち梅の花も咲いてくる。自然ですよ。強いです。
When in that philosophical context, tea or wood, it also means tree, is symbolic of spring. Particularly in Japan, the winter can be a bit harsh. And here, as you approach spring, you start to see the beginnings of the trees. That spring is on the way.
それから次、日、木、火。火は暑いですね。淡いです。夏、サマー。
And then you have heat, and then comes, I guess, hot for hot, like in Hawaii.
そして土曜、土ね。これは大事ですよ。雨、土。
And you have soil, and that's an important connection to the rain and the soil.
そして土っていうのは土曜なんです。土曜っていう言葉は間を取る。季節のね、間を取っていくわけです。間を取る。夏、これ、常夏のハワイって言ったってやっぱりちょっと11月には寒いわな。花も咲かないわな。だんだん3月、4月になって花が咲いてくるでしょ。どこでも自然なんですよ。だから土曜っていうのはね、季節の間にちょっと待ってな、次準備するからな、そういう間がある。それなると農作物も取れない。
We have this expression doyo, the do part being soil. It's used to mark the intervals between the seasons. You could think of this as nature's way of kind of mentally preparing us. It's been hot, it's about to get a little bit cooler, it's been cold, it's about to get a little hotter. And that's associated again with the earth and the soil, the concept of doyo.
まあ今日本ではね、夏バテせんように夏の土曜って言ってね、うなぎばっかり宣伝してるけどね、あんな嘘やね。
Nowadays, during the dog days of summer, you'll find commercials that will try to get you to buy products by telling you it's the doyo. That's not what I'm talking about. That's irrelevant.
そう次の羽は中国、日本、東南アジアみんな米ですよ。米が実ってきたら黄金ですよ。上から見たら黄金の波ですよ。
Really, these markers, these seasonal markers, are tied very much to rice production. And if any of you have ever seen a rice field in full bloom, you know that there's golden hues, and a lot of metaphors have been drawn from that.
季節というと秋です。アートム。
And particularly in autumn.
そして次に水。終わった。これ寒いですよ。冬、ウィンターです。
And then you have the element of mizu or water. This is associated with winter and cold.
この陰と陽、五行っていうのはもう世界中に大事な一つのね、学説です。
This yin-yang precept that embodies these 5 elements actually is quite relevant if you're trying to understand how life works anywhere on the planet.
この陰陽五行でね、論文書いて博士を取った人もいます。
There are people who have written their dissertations on what I'm talking about and gone on to receive PhDs.
ですから皆さん方もいっぺん陰、陽、五行をいっぺん研究してごらんなさい。面白い。すべてのところにそれが生きてる。
I would suggest for those of you who are so inclined to investigate, do a little research into what I'm talking about, and I think you can also start to discern some of the relevance of this yin-yang philosophy.
ですから日本の家屋の作り方、居場所ってものを皆そういう陰と五行によって作られてきてる。
Japanese architecture has been inspired and influenced a great deal by some of these older Chinese ways of thinking.
非常に合理的にですね、例えば電気ではない時代でも光線、太陽の光、月の光をお茶室の中へ入れるようにしる。
Back in the day, there was no electricity. Tea rooms were illuminated by strategically placing windows in just the right places to receive both sunlight and moonlight.
電気がないときはろうそくですよ、キャンドル。キャンドルと
No electricity, only candles.
油足にした油糸電気。この灯芯というのが 本当に部屋の中に入れるわけね。
And so they would use candles that were soaked using the oils they had at the time to create a very distinct type of lighting in the tea room.
この先ほど学長が紹介していただいた私の給したジャックワン、茶室ご覧いただいても、あれは上手に太陽を取り入れたハワイ的な一つの引用方言を入れてるわけです。
President Lassner made reference in his introductory remarks to the Jakuen tea house that we have here on campus. I recommend, if you have time, go and take a look. That tea house was very carefully designed again to incorporate the abundant sunlight that you have here in
そ
Hawaii.
して面白いことにね、お茶っていうものは風呂釜っていうのは火が入れて釜がかかって湯をそこで湯を沸かします。その隣に湯がちょっと熱すぎたらいかんなと補給するために水さして水が入ってるいいようなんです。
In Japan, we have the practice historically of taking baths, the ofuro. You have to heat the water, and so you have some type of kettle
風
filled
呂
with
釜
water.
っていうんですね。
Fudo, called the fudo kama. But of course, sometimes that water would become too hot and you'd have to cool it down. So then there was a cold water tank right next to it, or vessel. And this again is representing the yin and yang aspects incorporated into
これ
residential
は
architecture.
座敷でも椅子テーブルの上でも左側に風呂と釜とを置く。風呂の中には火が入ってすぐにキャップをそれで湯を沸かす。今もちろん電気でもできるけどね。
Our predecessors had to be a lot more creative and innovative with how they would go about taking a warm bath, particularly in the cold winter days. But everything was organized around these principles that we're discussing in terms of whether placed on the left or the right.
これよく覚えておいてくださいよ。で隣に水入れた水差し。そしてその三角形の頂点に主人公が座る。お手前する人。
I just would like you to come away with at least this from this part of my talk. We mentioned that you'd have a vessel or a container for holding the cold water that would be on one side, and then you would have the host. We're going to set up a triangular relationship here between these items.
だから面白いでしょ。陽、釜、火入ってるから陽ですよ。水はいいんですよ。陽と陰、その前に人間が座る。人間は右、この半身が陽なんです。こっちが陰なんです、左は、レフトは。まあ、よく左利きって言うけども、右が本来この半分が人間でも陽。陰だから水差しの陰の前に陽風呂釜の火の陽の前に陰ちゃんとできてる。
You
お茶
have
の手前っていうものを場所ざっとそうやって決まる。
so the source or heating the water is considered yang. The ability to then cool that hot water if it becomes excessively hot is considered yin. You have the person then placed in triangular relationship with these two. The human body also being divided into a yang and a yin side, but they're actually inverted, so you have a balance going in both directions. All of this is incorporated and finds its way into the temae that we refer to in the practice of
これは
chakra.
スポーツなんかご覧になって私はスポーツ好きでスポーツやってますから特にアメリカンフットボールなんかもポジションが決まってるわけです。そのいわゆるボールをどこに持っていくかです。陽のボールを陰のところに回す。
I love sports myself, so I'm going to give you a sports metaphor here. Football, what you Americans tend to call football. There are positions. Everyone takes a position. I'm not going to try to emulate or imitate the doctor, but he notes that you're taking the ball that is considered yang, but the passing it to a teammate is actually a yin movement.
陰において決まるルールは。
The rules establish this balance between the yin and the yang.
そう
You find this in sports.
日本の茶道っていうのはそれを全部教えてるわけ。
You can find all of the teachings, the fundamental teachings, woven into Chado.
私はね、本当に自分でスポーツ好きだけど、いろいろと研究し、全部そうですね。
I personally love sports, so I've looked for the connections between yin and yang in sports. I'll tell you, you find it there, you find it everywhere.
ここに侍、まあ私のうちも武家でありますから、昔はみんな侍ですよ。右に刀を刺すとかダメなの。こっちに刺すんです。ガッ、小刀と大刀と。だから、バッ。この仮面です。
Some of you are familiar with the samurai and how they would equip themselves with swords. I'm going to move the mic a little bit over.
これは難しいですね。左は右表面。
Doctor is demonstrating that even the concepts of yin and yang are incorporated into the weaponry and the forms and movement with the swords.
何でもそうです。
You find it in the martial arts as well.
空手だってそうでしょ。
Karate.
今のいろんな意味でその道っていうものがつくのは自分の己をその中に入れ込めっていうことです。
Chado is a dole or a michi, which means a way. There are many ways out there. They all have one thing in common. The individual approaches it, becomes part of it, and forms him or herself through it.
大王将ね、ラッチャー前でこんなこと言うのいけませんけど、北斗家の教えに三法院っていう3つの教えがある。
There are three Buddhist teachings of the Buddha that I'd like to touch upon just for a moment.
その一つはね、諸行無常、諸行もろもろの行いは無常、常になし。
The first is
諸行無常。
Shogyo Mujo, which can be translated to everything. Everything you do, everything you see is transient.
何でもね、思うようにならん。
Nothing will stay with you or around you forever.
そして次に諸法無我、諸法無我、もろもろのいろんな決まったことあるわ。人間が生きるためには法律、ね、まあ自動車でもルールがある。自転車でもバイスクルでも何でも道歩んでもいろいろ人間には制約があります。
The second teaching that the Buddha stressed was that there will always be restrictions, there will always be rules as long as people need to engage and interact together. And you see this everywhere, whether you're driving a car on the road or just this whole system of law that we've developed.
勝手に何でもしてもええっていうことはね。
In other words, we're not at liberty to do everything and anything that we wish to do.
ある意味では嫌だなと思っても法律があるから法律で守られてる。
The law will ensure that if you decide that you want to do otherwise, you'll be penalized.
でも人間っていうのはだんだん自分が権力を持ってくると他に対して何かこう圧迫をしていこうとする。
And yet human nature seems to be human nature. And when you give an individual too much power, they seem to be more than happy to adjust the
そ
rules.
れが国と国となっているとかつて日本がアメリカと戦争したようなことになってくる。
The same dynamic occurs between nations. We're all familiar with the fact that although friends today, Japan and the United States, were bitter enemies 70 years ago.
人間はみんな我があるんです。我っていうのは飛ぶ側も嫌だけども人間の心の中にみんなそういうね欲動しい権力欲
There is an element, and we need to recognize it in all of us. We can call it selfishness, we can call it greed. That element of us knows no limits.
だってそうでしょ。さっき一番最初に言って愛してます愛してますって言ったってどっちかが権力取りたいって夫婦生活でも私条件言わなくてもこんなの。
We started by talking about Valentine's Day. People are quick to say, I love you, I love you, husband and wife, but actually they're engaged in warfare. Have you noticed? Who has the most power? I want it my way. I want it my way.
だって兄弟だってそうだもん、仲がいい人ってこれ兄弟喧嘩してる。
You see the same thing among brothers and sisters. At first blush, they look like they have a good relationship. There's battles going on.
親が亡くなった遺産相続で仲のいい兄弟だって喧嘩してる。
One proof of that, wait till the parents die and their estate has to be divided.
私は協定員でずいぶん苦労したことある。
I've had my share of experiences, trust me.
そういうことを人間っていうのは勝手なんです。
Humans, for want of a better word, we're just selfish
それを
creatures.
仏様は戒めてるわけ。
And the Buddha was attempting to
そし
remind
て
us
そ
of
うい
this.
うことがあってこそ初めて生きてる、死んでいる。
We live subject to all of these passions and tendencies, and eventually we die.
涅槃弱情っていうね、涅槃弱情。静かに死んでいけばいい。
The last teaching, the third teaching I wanted to talk about, Buddha reminded us it would be best if we could die peacefully.
なかなかそうはいかん。
I don't think that's as easy as it
そ
sounds.
して最後にもう一つお漬物がある。
I just want one more thing.
一生回復、一生回復、一生は皆苦しみやねん。苦しみ、苦しみ、悩みとか、もういろんな人間のおぞましいもの、一生それを持ってんねん。生まれた時から死ぬまで。
Don't take it all that personally. Every human being comes into this earth already carrying the burden of suffering.
あなた方ね、幸せや、嬉しいわ、一瞬ですよ。幸せや、嬉しいだって一瞬や。一瞬に消えていくじゃない。
You might want to keep in mind that as painful as all of it feels and as real as all of it feels, it all disappears when you pass away.
今みんな静かな顔してるけど、みんな心の中で苦しみ持ってますよ。悩みを持ってますよ。
I'm experienced enough to know that everybody's sitting here looking very calmly, like they're enjoying themselves, but I know you all carry a great deal of psychological burdens, family burdens.
満ち足りるっていうことはないのよ、人間には。満ち足りる。満ち足りっていうのはね、すべて満足するとかないんです。
I've yet in 99 years to come across a person who is truly satisfied with every aspect of their lives.
いつも苦しんでるんですよ。
Pain is and suffering constant companions for us all.
そういうことを自分がちゃんと自分で自覚すれば、仏様の教えに従っていけるわけ。
You
自
take
覚する。自分で悟るね、少しでも。
some time to conduct what you could call self-inquiry. You will then be guided to a path that is at least a little less painful. And the Buddha's teaching provide one path there.
ですから一生懸命何かに集中できるっていうものを持つものが大事だ。
I believe it's very important for us all to have some sort of vision that can carry us through.
だから日本では茶道っていうものがずっと続いてきたんです。みんなのそういう苦しみとか悩みを一番のお茶でどうぞ。その瞬間に自分は本当の主人公マスター。女性でも男性でも。
If you don't have a vision, you certainly can take advantage of one of the many paths, like the way of tea, by immersing yourself in that. Even though life will be and continue to be painful, it will send a lot your way. But you will have a focus. And here we talked about yin, yang, male, female. That is totally irrelevant.
私ね、この年になってきてね、もう100年生きてきた。びっくりする自分で。
I'm going to be, and it surprises me when I have to say this, I'm going to be 100 years old this year.
でもね、今私ね、生きてるっていうことは大事やと思うけどね、いつでもあっち行ける。そして今ね、本当に思い返ってみるとね、あんなことで悪かったな、これ悪かったな、反省ばっかりですよ。
still love life, but I'm ready to let go any time. And I've lived so long that I look back, and I'll tell you, I regret a lot of things that I said, and I regret a lot of things that I did.
all day reflect
All regret.
反省する後悔するそう言いたもんですよ。でも私はねお茶があります。ですから何でも集中するの。いかにいただく時でもその瞬間ねスメルそしてお茶をいただくその瞬間時間が止まります。
And the torment of regrets disappears, vaporizes for me when I return to the practice of preparing tea. The aroma that arises from the bowl. I'm able to clear my mind and enjoy the preciousness of this moment.
本当に言ってはあるけども私も若い時に随分いろんな経験をしました。アメリカと戦っていて酷な本当に飛行機に乗って2年間は死ぬ覚悟っていうよりも死ぬ思いで自分が戦ってきている。
I've had my share of experiences that at times I would prefer not to remember. I went to war during World War II. I was living side by side with death during a very bloody and long, deadly battle.
当時大学から一緒に行った仲間本当に戦闘機いろいろ爆撃機に乗ってみんな仲間が600人以上亡くなっていきました。
My fellow comrades in arms at the time, students, all of them, 600 in number, all boarded bombers. They set off on their assigned missions. They did not come back.
戦争という夢らしい中で私は地獄を見てきました。
For me, saying I fought in the war could be expressed in other different words. I lived through hell.
その地獄っては何やなんで人間同士がこんな忌まわしい戦いをしなきゃなんないんだって。
And one of the hardest parts of living through hell is when you're tormented by the thought, is any of this necessary?
私は平和という言葉を使うのは嫌いなんです。
I don't actually like to use the word peace.
平和など使わなくてもいい世の中にしていこうじゃないですか。
I would prefer to create a world where we never had to refer to peace.
口先だけで平和や平和や平和や平和やとどこで平和出てきます？
Too easy to use the word peace. I stand for peace. I believe in peace. Where's the peace?
ウクライナとロシアが今戦って下手したら第三次大戦になるかもしれない。
Right in front of our eyes, we watched Russia invade Ukraine. We're holding our breaths. We may be looking at the beginning of World War III.
私はユナイテッドネーションに日本の親善大使でこの9月に参ります。ニューヨークで
I will be visiting the United Nations headquarters later this year. I continue to serve in my role as a goodwill ambassador from Japan.
どうしてかというと今のユナイテッドネーションは何にも役に立たない。
It frustrates me to no end that the UN seems incapable of doing anything.
ロシアに対してウクライナに対していろいろ警告総会で各国が出しても常任理事国のロシアと中国がノーって言ったら全然機能しない。
No matter what resolutions are put before the Security Council, you have members of the Security Council who have what's called a veto right. China and Russia are quick to veto any sensible solution to bring the violence to an end.
私はウクライナにも理解も言っております。ロシアももちろん十分言っております。ロシアも十分皆さんモスクワ大学にお茶してなりお茶をみんなやってくれております。お茶の世界では一切争うことはない。この間もウクライナのお茶室からウクライナの うちの教会の連中はみんな着物を着てね、お茶会してる、あれ送ってくれました、インターネットで。涙が出てきた。そしてそこにね、またロシアの教会の連中も別のインターネットでお茶会をやってる。そういうものを結びつけたらね、ロシアもウクライナもみんな一緒になってくれると思うんです。
I've been to Ukraine on 2 occasions. I've been to Russia on a number of occasions. At the University of Moscow, there's actually a tea room. There's tea being practiced in both countries. I was fortunate enough to get pictures over the internet of a tea event in Ukraine and a separate, unrelated tea event in Russia. The tea community is not at war. How nice if we could find a way to work through this vehicle to bring these two nations together.
それはね、4年前に国連でやっぱりお茶会をしました。その時ね、私がお手前してね、でやってましたが、ちょっとわからなかった後ろの方でざわざわざわっとしたんですよ。なんだと後で聞いたら、北朝鮮と韓国との代表者が一緒に入ってきて、お茶席で隣同士に座ってお茶を飲んでくれました。こんなもう嘘なら全然顔も見たくないっていう北と南が一緒になってね、本当にお茶を飲んだのをみんな他の国の人が拍手しました。私も嬉しかった。一番のお茶が本当に大きなそれだけの役に立ったって。皆さん気づいてください。本当に一番のお茶っていうものを真剣にとってどうぞ。身分も上下の差も何にもない一番のお茶です。
Several years ago, I had occasion to host a tea gathering at the United Nations, and while I was going through the ceremonial steps preparing the tea, I could hear some boisterous sounds coming from behind. I kept my concentration, but later I inquired as to what had transpired, and I found out that the delegation from North Korea and the delegation from South Korea had come into the gathering. They sat down next to each other. This does not happen at the United Nations. They talked, they rejoiced, and so I speak from experience when I say that a bowl of tea can bring even sworn enemies together. Do not underestimate the power of tea.
お茶っていうものは本当に私はね、千利君、戦国時代に権力者である織田信長、それに仕えてお茶を出した時に暴れ者の織田信長がこれだけではこれのリベンジがある、茶はリベンジがないというので、茶の湯ご政道というね、お茶によって政治を行おう、政策をしようという政令を出したんです。
My ancestor and the founder of the Urasenke way of tea, Sen no Rikyu, must have had similar experiences. If you know the history, you know that he served Oda Nobunaga. This was a fairly violent, brutal ruler in Japanese history. Here comes my ancestor, serves him tea, and it seems to spark something in Oda Nobunaga's mind. He realizes that if I use force, there'll always be counter force and revenge. The tea ceremony does not have that effect on people. There is no revenge. And he then develops what actually becomes known as chanoyu, or tea ceremony politics. He practices politics through the tea ceremony.
私もね、私のうちに前のロシアのゴルバチョフさんご夫妻が奥様お茶をやってらっしゃる。2度来られました。今のプーチンさんも本当に柔道が好き。武道館で私も柔道のメンバーでありますので、お茶をやった。皆さんね、お茶一服いただいている時は本当に穏やかな方。お茶っていうものはそういう意味においてどうか一生懸命 お茶をおいしいお茶を立てて差し上げよう。間違ったっていいんです。そしてこういうコロナの時代ですからね、いろんなことやってみてください。いろいろ皆さん実験してみてください。自分なりのお茶っていうものをいっぺんにスッと立ててみてください。
I've served tea to the Gorbachevs, Mr. and Mrs. Gorbachev. I also, through a connection, through a common interest, judo, have done the same for Vladimir Putin. I have seen that when you put your heart into a cup of tea, you think about the other person's enjoyment of that tea, they drink it. In that moment, these Russian leaders were happy, they were at ease, they were at peace, and there was a connection. You can do the same. I encourage you, if you're practicing the way of tea, however, we have COVID, we have numerous other things that may come our way. Be creative, be adaptable, be flexible, find your own way in the way.
いかがあればジャカって、ビーン、ネビトで、あるいは日本文化研究のセンター、マクレビンス、もう、take care to the tea ceremony house. Thank you, so everybody. 本当にそこで行って、皆さん方は座ってみて、座らないとあぐらでいいんですよ。足崩していいですよ。そして楽しいお茶をやってください。その楽しいお茶が世界中に広まって戦争のない世界を作りましょう。
Don't be afraid of, for those that don't speak Japanese, don't be afraid of making mistakes along the path. We mentioned that we have Jakuan, we have the tea house. If you have occasion, participate in a tea ceremony over there. You don't have to sit in that formal, somewhat uncomfortable seiza position. You sit cross-legged. Just sit. Experience. And through the experience, let peace use you as a vehicle to spread throughout the world.
It's a framed photograph of the Jakuan taken by Mark.
ジャパンのお茶と写真をご覧ください。
It is a photograph of Jakuan taken at last year's summer seminar. So this has been absolutely delightful. We're very, very fortunate again. Can we have another hand for Dr. Sen? We welcome you to stay for a little while. There are refreshments at the back of the room. You have a chance to visit with Dr. Sen and visit with each other. So please stay and aloha.